Ah, G.I. Joe. One of Hasbro's most enduring franchises, G.I. Joe began life in the 1960s as a boy-targeted counterpart to Barbie. The 11-inch dolls were the reason the term action figure came into existence, and originally had 4 figures in the line, one for each branch of the U.S. Armed Forces. In the 1970s, during the backlash against the Vietnam War, the toy line was rethemed from military to an environmental adventure focus. That run ended in 1977. But G.I. Joe exploded into pop culture history in 1982 when the brand was changed from 11-inch dolls to 3 3/4-inch action figures. G.I. Joe is re-envisioned as a counter-terrorism force drawing from all branches of the military and in some cases civilian organizations such as the police or a firefighter squad. In addition, the Joes, as they became known, got themselves serious opposition in the form of Cobra, famously described as a ruthless terrorist organization determined to rule the world. With regulations on children's programming relaxed in the early 80s, Hasbro wasted no time in exploiting their various properties into new forms of media. In the case of G.I. Joe, that started with a highly popular comic book published by Marvel and a TV miniseries designed for weekday syndication broadcasting. The miniseries aired in 1983 and was later known by the title The Mass Device. Ratings and toy sales were high enough for a second miniseries, The Revenge of Cobra, to be aired in 1984. In 1985, G.I. Joe became a regular syndicated series, running for 2 seasons before things changed. With the success of the toy line and their related animated counterparts, Hasbro ordered Sunbow Productions to create 3 animated feature films for theatrical release based on their 3 most successful lines. These were My Little Pony, Transformers, and G.I. Joe. While production on the G.I. Joe movie began before Transformers, issues during production delayed its release by a year, allowing the My Little Pony and Transformers movies to be released in theaters in 1986. Unfortunately, neither did all that well at the box office, causing Hasbro to change their minds about a theatrical release for the Joe movie and instead releasing it directly to video. G.I. Joe the movie is infamous for taking the franchise to one of the most strange and bizarre places it has ever been. While the TV series was well known for outlandish plot lines, the movie amps this up to 11 while also resolving 2 ideas generated when Hasbro threw a monkey wrench into the writing team's plans. According to G.I. Joe writer and script editor Buzz Dixon, a story was conceived entitled The Most Dangerous Man in the World. This story would shed light on the origins of Cobra. As conceived, the story would focus on the Joes finding a man who was essentially the founder of Cobra but was usurped by Cobra Commander, who twisted the founder's philosophies and had him imprisoned. At the end of the story, the founder would escape and become a wild-card player in the Joe-Cobra dynamic, waging his own war on Cobra but not directly aiding the Joes. Hasbro liked the story idea but requested that it tie in a new character created for the toy line, the Cobra Emperor, who was meant as the new leader of Cobra. When asked if this meant Cobra Commander would be removed, Hasbro said no, the character would still be around. The writers then asked where the Cobra Emperor came from, and Hasbro passed the job of creating the character's backstory onto them. The Most Dangerous Man in the World storyline was shelved, and the writers proposed 2 possible story ideas. 1, the Cobra Emperor was to be created by Destro and Dr. Mindbender as a replacement for Cobra Commander using the DNA of the world's greatest military leaders and conquerors. Or 2, the Cobra Emperor came from a heretofore unseen lost civilization out to reclaim the Earth after the rise of humanity forced him into hiding. Hasbro's response was, do them both! The Cobra Emperor, now known as Serpentor, made his debut at the beginning of Season 2 in the 5-part story Arise, Serpentor, Arise. The Lost Civilization plotline, along with the previously unknown origins of Cobra Commander, would become the focus of the movie. The film opens in what even the harshest critics of the movie acknowledge is 3 minutes of the best animation ever seen in the entire franchise, along with an all-new theme.
Crashing through the sky comes a fearful cry, Cobra! Armies of the night, evil taking flight, Cobra! Cobra! Nowhere to run, nowhere to hide, panic spreading far and wide. Who can turn the tide? G.I. Joe! American hero! G.I. Joe! G.I. Joe! American hero!
This sequence wasn't actually in the script, but was added by the animation team after Hasbro mandated a more action-oriented opening. The film proper begins in a much more subdued fashion. Well, for a given value of subdued.
Our most dangerous enemy is not G.I. Joe, but your collective incompetence.
Your leadership has been pompous, pusillanimous, and pathetic! What did he say? That's combating.
That's treason.
I don't believe it.
Yes, leadership is at the very heart of this matter, but it is not mine that is inadequate, Cobra Commander. It is yours. Your ego-driven stupidity has converted victory to catastrophe for the last time.
By this point, most of the Cobra High Command are firmly in Serpentor's camp, and Cobra Commander doesn't like it one bit when no one will back his claims that Serpentor's stewardship of Cobra has been the cause of their recent failures. However, the debate over the merits of the commander's leadership is interrupted when a mysterious woman breaks into the terror drome using some very unusual equipment and skills. Convinced this is an assassination attempt on Serpentor, the High Command mobilizes to defend him. Cobra Commander, of course, sees this as an opportunity to rise to power once again. Spotting the assassin, the Commander sends the High Command in the wrong direction, allowing her to come face to face with the Cobra Emperor. But it turns out that this is not an assassination attempt.
I have seen you before. In a dream. A vision.
In a memory, great Serpentor. I am part of your destiny. When you were created, my face was etched into your soul. I am Pythona, and now it is time for you to fulfill your destiny. Behold, the broadcast energy transmitter.
Of course, the Broadcast Energy Transmitter, or BET, a device designed to transmit power wirelessly, is currently being tested by G.I. Joe. After the test is a success, Cobra makes their move. During the fight, Serpentor and Duke slug it out, with Duke managing to knock Serpentor out, allowing the Joes to take him prisoner when Cobra Commander calls for a retreat.
Retreat to the mountains! I know where we can find sanctuary!
Half the Joes, led by Roadblock, run down the Cobra forces, while Duke and the other half of the Joes deal with Serpentor and the BET. However, Cobra Commander's sanctuary is something highly unexpected.
Oh, mates, me eyes are playing tricks.
The Joes pursue the Cobra forces, but quickly find themselves outnumbered when it turns out this strange place is inhabited.
He knows these people?
Indeed he does, but it also appears that Cobra Commander has no friends here either.
You will all come with me now. No! No! Nemesis Enforcer, fetch Cobra Commander. No! Release me! I order you to let me go!
After Cobra Commander is captured, Pythona orders Zartan and the Dreadnoks to rescue Serpentor from Joe headquarters. Zartan, naturally, has concerns.
We don't know who you are, where you come from, or even what side you're on. Why should we risk our necks on your behalf?
Does this answer your question?
A gem of that size answers all my questions.
Since part of the reason this film was made was to promote the new wave of toys, as well as retire some of the older ones, the film returns to Joe headquarters, where we see a new batch of recruits. Chuckles, Big Lob, Tunnel Rat, Jinx, and Law, and his dog Order, are being put through their paces by Beachhead.
'Cause you're rough, tough, fighting machines! Thank you. It's a real pleasure to see that one of you's a real trooper.
De nada, man. Let's look sharp, eh, compadres?
There's also a sixth recruit, Lieutenant Falcon, voiced by Don Johnson. Falcon doesn't exactly take his training as a Joe seriously, as evidenced by the fact that he ditched to take his date to the detention center where Serpentor is being imprisoned as an effort to impress her.
Look out!
Ooh, do it again, Falcon, please.
Watch this. Over my shoulder. Duke! What are you doing here?
My duty, which is more than you seem able to do. Didn't it occur to you that a military prison is no place for a date?
Duke puts Falcon on guard duty, but it turns out his date has an ulterior motive.
Taking a dip, love? Serrano! I didn't know it was you!
You took the film in my camera, but not in my earrings. We'll soon know everything we need to penetrate the Joe stockade.
Blimey! It's a bloomin' sea monster!
Excellent, Serrano. You have done well.
Falcon ditches guard duty to flirt with Jinx, which gives Pythona and the Dreadnoks the chance to free Serpentor, injuring Gung-Ho, Alpine, and Bazooka in the process. Serpentor escapes, and General Hawk has Falcon detained for court-martial for dereliction of duty. Meanwhile, Serpentor is brought to the city where he meets the leader, Golobulus, voiced by Burgess Meredith.
I, Serpentor, Emperor of Cobra, salute you, most noble one. Pythona tells me I owe you my freedom.
Your freedom and your life. Know that I am Golobulus, supreme ruler of this kingdom of Cobra-La.
The name Cobra-La was actually a placeholder in the script. However, much like many decisions made so far, Hasbro liked the name and it was kept in the story. This has led to many jokes about the name among G.I. Joe fans. As it turns out, Golobulus is the actual mastermind behind Serpentor's creation, revealing that Dr. Mindbender's initial inspiration was courtesy of a Cobra-La psychic motivator, implanting the idea and skills necessary into Dr. Mindbender's brain. With this realization, the Cobra High Command swears allegiance to Golobulus, and the attention is turned to another matter.
First, a graver matter lies before us. The trial of Cobra Commander.
Meanwhile, another trial is in progress as Falcon appears at a preliminary hearing prior to court-martial. Duke pleads on Falcon's behalf, revealing that they're half-brothers. The tribunal decides not to send Falcon for court-martial. Instead, they have something much worse in mind.
Falcon, you're gonna learn what it means to be a Joe, even if it kills you. I'm sending you to the slaughterhouse.
Back in Cobra-La, Golobulus reveals that the people of Cobra-La dominated the Earth 40,000 years ago, a vast society which used technology based on organic life and compounds, as opposed to the use of metal and other inorganic substances. The Ice Age destroyed much of the civilization, forcing them into hiding while the earliest humans rose to dominate the planet. It was generations later that a young nobleman came to Golobulus's attention, but an accident severely disfigured him.
Even though disfigured by a laboratory accident, he was my choice to go into the world, to raise a mighty army, and to destroy the so-called human civilization which had driven us into exile. You were my hope, Cobra Commander, and you failed me miserably.
And so Golobulus reveals his plans.
A weapon no enemy can withstand. In several hours, these magnificent fungusoids will mature and launch hundreds of giant pods into orbit. The pods will bear spores, and the spores will degenerate all organisms they touch, mutating them into primitive, incompetent life forms. But the pods will not ripen in freezing space without energy. And that is why I must have
The broadcast energy transmitter, of course!
And as a demonstration of what humanity can expect, Cobra Commander is made an example of.
No! No! Not the spores! I'm a citizen of Cobra-La! Not the spores! No! No!
Meanwhile, Falcon arrives at his new training facility, the Slaughterhouse, so named because it's run by one Sergeant Slaughter, leader of the Renegades, a more rambunctious branch of the Joes.
Say hello to Mercer, ex-Cobra Viper who's seen the light. Red Dog, booted out of pro football for unnecessary roughness.
Hey!
And Taurus, a circus acrobat with a few loose bats in his big top. Now that we're all close friends, let's head for the Slaughterhouse. Grab your gear and start hot-footing it. If you're gonna be there in time for breakfast, it's a long haul.
You expect me to walk?
No! You can run!
Back in Cobra-La, Cobra Commander is thrown in with the Joes, giving them a chance to escape. They nearly make it to the exit, but Cobra Commander manages to warn Roadblock to prevent it from being captured by Cobra-La's defenses. Cobra Commander offers to help Roadblock escape, but only if he takes him along. Nemesis Enforcer is sent to stop them, managing to blind Roadblock in the process. The two escape by diving into a river. The spores begin to launch as Serpentor and the High Command head out to retrieve the BET. Meanwhile, Roadblock and Cobra Commander finally resurface, but the spores are taking their toll on the Commander. And for the first time, we get a full glimpse of his, now admittedly mutated, face.
I can't see, but I can still... Hey, this is your faceplate.
Was my mask, just as I was once a man.
At the Slaughterhouse, Falcon is put through his paces, but a couple of days later, Duke orders the Renegades to infiltrate the Drome in an effort to figure out where Roadblock's unit is. After a smart-ass suggestion from Falcon, the Renegades go in without weapons. Meanwhile, the BET is relocated to a civilian security lab, but the Baroness manages to infiltrate the escort and reports back to Cobra on the BET's location. The Renegades break into the Drome and, thanks to Mercer's experience with the place, manage to overhear Serpentor planning to take the BET, as well as getting their first hint at the existence of Cobra-La.
Strato Vipers, when the battle is won, to you shall go the honor of flying the transmitter back to Cobra-La.
You not feeling your brothers in, Mercer? What's Cobra-La?
I never heard of it. That answer gives me no comfort.
Pipe down. I believe him. Right now we gotta warn headquarters. Falcon, can you get the word out?
No sweat.
Then do it. We'll blow up their armory and rattle Reptile from here to Cobra-La.
Falcon heads in search of the communications room while Sergeant Slaughter and the Renegades plant a bomb in the armory, raising hell in the process. Falcon, unfortunately, is unable to contact the Joes before being captured by Xamot and Tomax and taken to Serpentor.
How many in your force? What is the purpose of your mission? You can't resist forever.
You're right. All I gotta do is hold out for 5 more minutes.
The Renegades manage to rescue Falcon and leave before the bomb goes off, destroying the Drome. However, the High Command manages to survive and start the assault on the lab for the BET. The Joes mobilize, leaving the rookies behind, but they quickly hotwire a helicopter and head for the battle. The Joes quickly gain the upper hand, but are routed when reinforcements arrive from Cobra-La. With G.I. Joe unprepared for this outright bizarre assault, Cobra manages to secure the BET, but the Renegades arrive. Falcon is threatened by Serpentor, but Duke arrives to rescue him, leading to this.
Die, arrogant Earth scum! No!
Duke?
Now, originally, the plan was to have Duke killed in this scene, as Buzz Dixon, who wrote the final draft of the script, felt that after 2 seasons of no one on either side getting seriously hurt, somebody should probably die to illustrate the stakes and realities of this kind of combat. And since the Duke action figure was scheduled to be dropped from the product line, Hasbro agreed. In fact, they liked the idea so much they ordered the same thing happen to Optimus Prime in the Transformers movie. As mentioned, production delays prevented the G.I. Joe movie from being released as originally scheduled. And when the backlash from Optimus Prime's death got back to Hasbro, a hasty rewrite was put in to avert Duke's death, so we ended up with this.
Joe. He's gone into a coma.
Yeah, coma. Anyway, back in Cobra-La, the BET is fired up, transmitting energy to the spore pods in space, but the outpouring of energy pinpoints the location of Cobra-La to the Joes. Falcon's ready to go, but General Hawk orders the rookies to stay behind to guard the base and try to contact Flinch's search party. Elsewhere in the Himalayas, Roadblock and Cobra Commander finally emerge from Cobra-La's ice dome, but Cobra Commander's condition has worsened considerably.
You're going snake house, man. You gotta resist.
Yes, was once a man.
Stop strangling me!
The two struggle and luckily run right into Flint's rescue team. Flint and Roadblock contact the Joe base, where Falcon appraises them of the current situation. General Hawk leads the charge on Cobra-La, but Roadblock's warning comes too late and the force is captured. The rookies head out and meet up with Flint's team. Cobra Commander leads them back to Cobra-La, but by the time they get there, the spores have taken their full effect, turning him fully into a snake. Tunnel Rat manages to find the river and traces it back up to where Zorana and Monkey Wrench are about to close off the tunnel. The rookies take out the Dreadnoks and commandeer their vehicles, using them to free the other Joes. The Joes move in to shut down the BET, but Globulus activates the various creatures that make up Cobra-La to hamper them. Eventually, Falcon, Jinx, and Sergeant Slaughter manage to make it to the throne room, challenging Serpentor, Pythona, and Nemesis Enforcer, respectively. Serpentor nearly manages to strangle Falcon with one of his snakes, but Cobra Commander intervenes, allowing Falcon to escape. Globulus opens a huge rift in the floor, which proves to be a bad idea when Jinx manages to hurl Pythona into it, and Sergeant Slaughter follows up by chucking Nemesis Enforcer right after her.
This is for Gung-Ho, Alpine, and Bazooka! This is for Falcon! This is for me! This is for Duke! And this is for the U.S. Army! You make me sick!
Falcon manages to hop aboard Serpentor's hovercraft and becomes, despite popular belief, the first animated film to demonstrate why capes and turbines don't mix. With Serpentor gone, Falcon challenges Globulus, who proves to be a much more formidable threat than previously thought.
The last thing you will hear is the cracking of your vertebrae, one by one.
With Globulus distracted, Falcon manages to shut down the BET, but it proves to be too late as the pods have absorbed enough energy to start releasing the spores. Globulus manages to escape, but Falcon gets the idea to overload the BET to the point of frying the spores in orbit before they hit the Earth. The BET overloads and explodes, destroying Cobra-La. The Joes manage to escape the blast, and we get another hasty voiceover from Doc.
General Hawk, do you read me? This is Doc at headquarters. Great news. Duke's come out of his coma.
Yeah. And so, the Joes prepare to go home as Falcon and Jinx watch the spores burn up in the atmosphere. This movie was meant to shake things up dramatically for the series going forward. Sunbow's original plan at this point was for remnants of the Cobra Elite, led by Xamot and Tomax, to form a new criminal organization, the Coil, and become the new opponents of the Joes, with Cobra Commanders slithering around the edges trying to undo his condition and rebuild Cobra. However, this plotline never came to fruition. Deke Entertainment approached Hasbro and made them an offer to continue producing G.I. Joe at a much cheaper cost. Hasbro gave them the job, and in 1989 a new miniseries, Operation Dragonfire, which featured the removal of Serpentor and the return of Cobra Commander as leader of Cobra, aired. And while the new series continued from the same continuity as the Sunbow series, the animation is considerably less polished than the Sunbow era, and nearly every voice actor from the original series was left out of production, with the exceptions of Chris Latta as Cobra Commander and Morgan Lofting as the Baroness. The second regular series began in 1990 and ran for 2 seasons and 44 episodes, being cancelled in 1992. For the next few years, Hasbro tried to reinvigorate the brand with other series like G.I. Joe Extreme and Sigma 6, but neither of these really took off. The franchise got an updating for the 25th anniversary special G.I. Joe Resolute, which originally was a 12-part web series comprised of 5-minute episodes and was later aired as a 1-hour special on Cartoon Network. Ultimately, following the live-action movie G.I. Joe The Rise of Cobra, the franchise was fully rebooted with the series G.I. Joe Renegades. As for the movie itself, it wasn't really well received by the fanbase. These days, it's largely been rendered by non-canon by most other projects using the Sunbow series as its base. The comics always followed their own continuity and largely ignored what happened in the cartoon. These days, any continuity springboarding from the 80s era of the franchise tends to be a kind of hybrid canon comprised of events from both the cartoon and the comics, but usually leaving out any mention of Cobra-La or Cobra Commander's connection to it. The movie was released on DVD in June of 2000 by Rhino and later again on DVD and Blu-ray by Shout Factory in July of 2010. And while it's undoubtedly a strange entry in the G.I. Joe canon, the quality and creativity of the animation, not to mention some fairly good voice acting by most of the cast, makes G.I. Joe the movie worth at least one watch if you have any sort of interest in this franchise. I'm Aaron Mills. Join me again next week for another edition of Saturd80s.